Mornings interview. And I'm really glad to be joined today by Susan Mazzarella. Susan, how you doing?
Hello, good to see you, David. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're so glad that you can make time. We know your work is very essential and very busy these days. So we're glad to take a couple minutes to speak to us today. So Susan, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I am the CEO of Catholic Social Services, and Catholic Social Services is the human services arm of the Fall River Diocese. So in many ways, we are the mission in action. So we have many of the programs that help to minister to individuals and families who are in need, whether they're in need of essential items or shelter, food, services for disabilities, etc. So they would be sent to Catholic Social Services. And so we try to cover the geographic footprint of our diocese. We have many programs. For example, we have 5 individual shelters, 1 in Taunton, 3 in New Bedford for women, men, and young adults, and 1 in Hyannis. During COVID and the cold weather, we actually had to open 2 additional shelters in motels. So we're operating 7. That's been quite an interesting experiment. But we can't have people freezing to death on the streets, so we were able to do that. We have a family shelter program where we service 76 homeless families throughout Bristol County. We have permanent supportive housing, and we have 98 families and individuals where we help them gain self-sufficiency for their own permanent housing solutions. We have a food pantry, which is small little food pantry, Solenis Casey in New Bedford. However, with COVID, the capacity it is expanded by 153%. So food pantry has really taken a hit during COVID, but has also received so many donations and so many contributions that we were able to reach, how do I say, I have it written down here, 505,663 pounds of food we were able to distribute to the hungry, particularly in the New Bedford area. Mm-hmm. And that's a retail value of almost $500,000.
Oh, wow.
So in addition to that, we have a housing counseling program that helps with foreclosure prevention, but also first-time home buyers. We have 2 transitional housing programs. We have a program in Hyannis for women. It's a reentry program. So women who are coming out of incarceration, they enter St. Clair's and work toward getting reintegrated and getting reunited with their loved ones and finding jobs and finding permanent housing. We have a disabilities apostolate and a basic needs department and a program that we're very proud of, and that is our immigration department, where we work with individuals and families who are looking for asylum and fleeing domestic violence. And that program covers the entirety of our diocese. So last year we serviced, for 2020, we serviced over 35,000 people in all those programs.
That is absolutely phenomenal. So anyone, wherever you are, let's give Sue and Catholic Services a round of applause. I mean, when you say that it's kind of the mission action, you're so true. I mean, we hear about Jesus feeding the 5,000. You are feeding the 5,000. And how much of it, when we look at our faith, is that the miracles Jesus works, he continues to calls us to do by being miracles, so to speak. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Being, I think St. Teresa of Avila said it best, where it's, God has no hands, no feet, but yours. And so here you are doing just that. And so, on that note too, so we're still in Lent. So we just finished Laetare Sunday, the 4th week of Sunday, of saying we're almost there. So we have 2 more Sundays to go, but it's still Lent. Mm-hmm. And we've talked so far about prayer and about fasting, but the third and also a very essential pillar of Lent is almsgiving. So, not only just as CEO of Catholic Social Services, but also just as a Catholic in your own faith life, what wisdom or advice could you give about the importance of almsgiving in the faith life, especially during Lent?
The importance of almsgiving. That's such an old-fashioned word, right? It sounds so old-fashioned, but it still has a vibrancy, because almsgiving, as you said, David, is the third pillar of Lent, partnering with fasting and with prayer. And what almsgiving is to me, not just in terms of Catholic social services, but in terms of just a Catholic, a practicing Catholic, is it's making the needs of others our own. And it is donating goods or services, volunteerism, money to try to help people in need. And it's also performing acts of charity. Almsgiving is in itself an act of mercy and an act of justice. And in some ways, you know, it sort of combines the other two pillars, almsgiving. It is a form of prayer because it's a giving to God of ourselves. And it's a form of fasting because it also involves sacrificing something. It involves some sacrificing and some giving.
Yeah, I think that's such a good, important point to make, because sometimes we can think of, you know, as important as monetary donations are, right? You know, neither of us could function without the generous support of donors giving financially to us to be able to do the work. Absolutely. But if that's all we do, there's a piece missing too, where we miss the other person. You know, we see throughout Scripture of Jesus calling us to essentially encounter the other. And so when we look at almsgiving also as a fruit of prayer and of fasting, you know, I gave something up, but what I gave up, I'm going to do something with that and give it. Or I'm going, you know, I'll never forget, I had this interaction one time. I took a group of teens to Philadelphia on a mission trip to service work. And outside, like the Rocky Steps, you have, you know, homeless individuals who are there wanting to help take pictures. And ultimately, it's kind of a way that they look to seek for donations. And so, you know, I you know, said no. And then, you know, I said, I'll pray for you. And he looked at me and he said, a prayer won't put a sandwich in my stomach. And it hit me right at the gut, because there we are trying to go and say we do work and mission work and service. But are we doing that for the people there, or are we doing that for ourselves to be able to say we got mission work? And here I am, the other right in front of me, and I'm missing them. So I think it's so important that, you know, while almsgiving is essential, to do it apart from prayer and from fasting. I think it's really why the Church in her wisdom puts this year together. So really, thank you for highlighting that point. But you also listed a lot of, you know, realistic ways that Catholic Services is doing this work that takes prayer and fasting and puts it into the reality. What are some examples of maybe the people you serve, or maybe how your life has been touched by the work that and the people you've encountered at Catholic Social Services?
We have countless examples, David. And I do have to say that Catholic Social Services can only service all of those 35,000 people with the assistance and generosity of our community. That is not just through the donations, but through the volunteerism. We have so many, hundreds of incredible volunteers who will volunteer at our soup kitchen or help us with our Christmas program. Our food pantry has only been able to service all those people because of our volunteers, especially during COVID. They battled a pandemic to try to put that sandwich, you know, in somebody's belly. You know, it really is the faith in action. But there are so many examples of how almsgiving translates into helping others. And it's through the actions, it's through the donations. And you never know whether you give. It's funny, we have a PayPal link on our website, and we get sometimes very generous donations, and we're very grateful for those. And we also have some folks who donate $5 a month. It's like a rhythmic, steady heartbeat. And both are so equally important, and both just get channeled through Catholic Social Services and help so many people. I'll give you examples. And you never know where your donation is going to end up and impact people. For example, in our basic needs. Now, our basic needs department is funded by donations and also some funding from the Catholic Appeal. Well, a few years ago, we had a gentleman who was in our homeless shelter, and he was trying to work towards self-sufficiency. And he was able to get a job, which is huge, because in order to afford an apartment, you have to be able to have some income. And right at the threshold of his starting work, he wanted to back out. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. What happened? Well, he felt very ashamed and embarrassed because he did not have any teeth. And it is sometimes a byproduct of living on the streets, being homeless. And he felt such shame for that. Well, we were able to use some of those basic needs funds to get him a set of dentures, and he was able to go to work, and he maintained work and was able to get himself out of homelessness. So somebody who's donating that $5 a month has no idea, and that's a very concrete example, how that helped somebody move from homelessness through a set of dentures. I mean, I love that story because it just shows the magic of the connection, right? It shows the Holy Spirit at work. Another example, during COVID, one of the things that was sacrificed was our soup kitchen. And we were able to give meals, but we could not have people come and partake in the soup kitchen. And every Thanksgiving, we would have a Thanksgiving meal, but we couldn't this year. And it really, really bothered us. So what were we going to do? Well, we decided to use some of the generous donations that came in, and we contacted a catering company, and we did takeout meals for Thanksgiving. It was a very cold, rainy day, but that's what we did. And we were handing out the meals, and people our homeless brothers and sisters were coming in on their bicycles, all wrapped up. We had tents set up outside, and they were able to have a Thanksgiving meal. All from the donations that came in through COVID, through contributions. And here's something else that's interesting. When I was on my way to the shelter, which is in New Bedford, on Thanksgiving Day, and I saw all of the smoke, and there was a huge fire. And it wasn't until later in the day that we realized that 2 apartment buildings had burned to the ground, leaving many, many families homeless. So we learned that toward the end of the day, and here we had some extra Thanksgiving meals. And so we were able to bring them to the folks who were displaced by the fire and to the firemen and the police, the first responders, so they could have a Thanksgiving meal too. So see the connection, right? It went from somebody donating some funds, some monetary donation, to feeding the hungry, to also feeding people who just had a calamity in our community. That's the spirit. It had that energy of giving. So you just don't know. Another example, this
is wonderful. Yes, please.
There are so many, because another example, again, I like the indirect route, because you just never know where the hand of God is going to guide your donation, your service. So with our food pantry, as I said, we have been really exerting so much effort to try to feed the hungry in New Bedford. And so this was around August or September. And I received an email from a young woman introducing herself. And this is what she said. She's like, yeah, she said, my cousins and I, we like to visit we visit our other cousins in South Dartmouth. And this year, we were sort of bored. And so we decided to have some bake sales, and people really liked it. So every week we were doing a bake sale. And so we were wondering if you would be willing to accept our donation of our profits. And she said, we could do a cash or check, whatever's easy. And so, of course, we invited them to the food pantry on one of the days that it was open, and they got to meet some of the folks whom they were helping. And they ended up contributing $2,000. $2,000. So these were kids, teenagers, who were bored during the summer, started baking, and then they channeled that into a significant donation for our food pantry. You just don't know what's going to be coming around and who it's going to help. But what you do know is people are benefiting from your volunteerism, from your monetary donation, from the donation of items.
Yeah.
when with all of the COVID, one of the things that we've had to do when we have our shelter guests come in, they have to shower right away, and we need to give them a change of clothes, right? And then we put their existing clothes in the laundry. Well, sweatshirts and sweatpants, that has a cost to it. So we just put the request out there for new items. And we have to, when we ask for items, by the way, we do have to accept just new items because of the sanitary reasons, and also in order to sanitize and sort. We don't have the manpower for that, but folks have really responded to it. And so these individuals who are coming into shelter were able to receive a new pair of sweatpants and a new and some new socks. And that might not sound like a big deal to us, but to them, when all they had were the clothes on their back and they got this new item that they were able to take out of the package, not only did it give them warmth, not only did it give them comfort, but it's an expression. What's attached to that donation is a sense of worthiness. And that plants the seed for dignity. It's dignity restoring.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it such a key piece of what we believe in? And as you're talking, I'm just thinking of Pope Francis's latest work for Telly Tutti, looking at subsidiary, looking at solidarity as a human family. Too, of it all stems from the basic principle of we believe every human life has dignity and worth, and that includes the person right in front of you. And it's simply saying you're worth my time, my effort. You know, I'm taken back to the widower in the temple who just gave from the 2 coins, gave from her need, not her excess. You know, you have the rich man who gave all this money, but he was giving from his excess. And here's this widower giving just 2 coins from her need. And Jesus says that she has given more than any of the individuals. I mean, those $5, especially if it's coming from your need, one, God will never be outdone in generosity. You know, if whatever generosity we give, if there's nothing else I've taken from the examples you've been showing us, that God will use blessing to bless through the people who hear his call. If we just have eyes to see, right? Those at CSS, you guys, you have eyes to see. So you not only serve people, then you have the fire and you give food. So how can we have eyes to see, give from our need, not just from our excess, and trust that God will never be outdone in generosity, that if we're afraid to give, that God will give to us who have given. What you know, the classic line from the peace prayer of it's in giving that we receive. That God is never outdone in generosity. And I think that's such a important thing to remember with the pillar of almsgiving is do not be afraid to give of your time, of your talent, of your treasure, because just as like you shared, you don't know whose lives you're going to touch or whose lives you're going to miss from touching by not giving of your time, talent, treasure. So absolutely want to thank you for giving those examples and for sharing with that. You know, so if individuals who maybe have not been connected to Catholic Social Services want to become involved with Catholic Social Services, they want to become a partner either remotely, especially given the pandemic, or perhaps they are able to in person support the work on the ground. What are some ways that people can get in touch in both of those areas?
We have our website, cssdioc.org. Certainly, you could reach out to us there, or call one of our offices. We have an office on Bay Street in Fall River, Bonnie Street in New Bedford, and South Street in Hyannis, or one of our programs called The Shelter, because we're open 24 hours at the shelter. And there's always something to do, and there's always some way to help, and nothing is too small. Everything matters, and everything makes a difference in people's lives. It really is. It's one of the greatest joys of being in this role at Catholic Social Services, and just seeing the people who are touched and who are helped by other people. Seeing somebody who worked themselves out of homelessness and is now self-sufficient, but yet they're giving $5 a month just to help somebody who is at the beginning of their journey when they've already reached their goals. It's miraculous. It is the Holy Spirit in action.
Absolutely.
So call us.
Their lives have been touched.
Their lives have been touched, and in so doing, your life is touched too. When you The other phenomenon that occurs, I just have to say this, David, because
Sure.
this has been so much fun to watch. No matter what our need is, it always gets answered. For example, a few weeks ago, we received a call from a social worker and we get many calls from folks on the outside, and we do have a large donation room that we keep open all the time. So we welcome people calling so we can move those donations out. That's the whole point. That's the spirit, the giving, the receiving. There's that energy attached to it. So we received a call from a social worker. She had a family, domestic violence issue, a few children, and of course the woman didn't have any resources. So they needed diapers, they needed baby clothes, they needed winter coats. Okay, so we went into the donation room, packed up some boxes for them. They were picked up. 2 days later, I get a call from our pro-life apostolate, Irina.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? We decided to sponsor Catholic Social Services. So we're bringing over donations that we collected of diapers, toys, winter clothes. So we gave it out and immediately it was replaced. It happened 2 Christmases ago in our immigration department. We had a need. There were about 40 folks who needed winter coats. And we had a little less than 40 coats, but we gave them what we had. So we were cleaned out with winter coats. What happened a week later? We received a call from the Knights of Columbus in Mansfield saying, well, we raised some funds, we bought brand new coats, and we are donating some to Catholic Social Services in all sizes, all ages. And we received 200 coats, brand new. It's in the giving that we receive. You give it and we get it back. And that is the Holy Spirit at work. And that's the mission in action. And that is the whole cycle of almsgiving, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and it starts with us seeing that is a part of who we are as Catholics, that through our baptismal call, priest, prophet, and king, that we're called to go out and to live that faith, that when we go to Mass and they say, go in peace, that is a command to go out. To live what we just received. So, to all those watching, I would invite you, how can you take up that call of action? How can you have eyes to see? Because there are people like Susan and Catholic Social Service and her team that are ready to take the blessings you can give and to bless others with it. You can trust them with it. And I'm sure, like you said, there's many more stories of blessing that you can give. But what great work, Susan, that you do, great work that Catholic Social Services does. And I certainly invite individuals either remotely and financially or in person, please support the work of Catholic Social Services now more than ever. You guys didn't close during the pandemic. You kept going. There was no doors shut. You kept going. So and you're still going to keep going, which is so essential. So we put the website in the chat below so you can access cssdioc.org. And by all means, reach out to them. So, Susan, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. God bless your work.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can continue to support your work.
David, you said a few times, eyes to see, and talking about connection to others. And I think that's really how I would like to end. What is the manifestation of connection to others? And the word that comes to mind is opening. That's opening our eyes so we can observe the need and who needs it. It's opening our hearts with compassion. It's opening our resources so we can help meet that need and share our resources. And really, it's opening our arms to embrace each other, because ultimately we are brothers and sisters.
Thank you so much. So let's open. And my challenge then will be, let's all pray in each our way. How is God calling us to open, to have eyes? Susan, thank you so much. Everyone, take care. We'll see you at the next one.